looking for something. A new way, a new understanding, a connection, some comfort. You've got questions, and Light on Living puts the spotlight on all the answers so you can shine. Lift and lighten the load of life's challenges and learn simple and easy ways to live a healthy, happy life. You'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you. You're invited to hear new, see different, and feel more as Lisa shines the light on living.
Welcome, everyone, to Light on Living. I'm Light Coach Lisa, holistic nutritionist and life coach, helping to lighten the load of life's challenges. Well, today my intro comes from actually watching my football yesterday. I just love listening to the commentators and their interpretation of the game and what they're talking about. And one word that really, it's used all the time, but it was really jumping out at me. And that means there's something going on in my life that I probably need. But the word was lateral. And, the word lateral, side to side, not forward, not backwards, but lateral movements. So when I hear people say to me sometimes, you know what, you just got to take a step back and then you can look and move forward. And I know in football you have to do that to gain yards sometimes. But what if in life we haven't figured out where we're, what we're going to move forward from in the first place? What happens if our path hasn't started? So you can't really go backwards, and lateral seems to be the best way to do that. Now, what if you're 18 and you haven't yet started, or you could be even 40 haven't yet started, but when you're younger, you really don't have a step to take back. You can't do this. So today I do bring you a guest that had to make a shift in their lives, perhaps lateral, and it was very early. It was really young, and the situation calls for very important decisions to be made and responsibilities that need to be taken care of. And I never know where I'm going to meet my next author, how, where, who, and all that kind of stuff. But what I do try to do is when I bring a guest on and in their stories that they're sharing, I try to go lateral with them, try to go deeper in a different way and hear their strategies, what inspiring life story and game plan that they have. So I'm happy to introduce Scott Aaron, who's an author, a speaker, personal trainer, LinkedIn lead generator, and Facebook Live coach. He just does it all, and he's got some great stories to share. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And let me first say it's such an honor and a privilege, to be sharing this with you, but I'm always looking to collaborate with such amazing individuals as yourself for us to get our voice, share our stories, to inspire others. And if we can do this and leave one person better than they were before they heard this, then our job has been done. So just thank you again.
Oh, well, thank you. And that's the first thing we've been, popping up in each other's social media world here and there. And I thought, no, there's something here. There is something to explore. I love people's stories, but yours, everybody's has some interesting twists, but my goodness, you had some life-changing things happen when really there was no opportunity for you to step back and look to make a change. You were kind of thrown into something, and that's where I would love for you to start, just to share with people, what the heck happened to you?
Well, I'd be happy to share. And, for a long time, I did have that story playing in my head, what happened to me. Oh. But when I was able to really take a 10,000-foot view of my story, of my life, of my upbringing, of my situations, it was actually what happened for me. Because, when things happen, good, bad, indifferent, you have the choice of how you want to look at it. So when something happens, you can look at it from a negative point of view, the half glass empty, or you can look at it through a positive view, the half glass full. And I made a shift in my life, and I chose to see things on the positive end because that was the choice that I made. So were the stories that I used to replay where I'm like, why is this happening to me again? Why me? Why me? It's like, okay, this is happening for me. What can I learn from this, and how can I become better? And, there's a lot of things that happened for me that has shaped me into the man I am now at 38 years old. But for people to see where I am right now, there's an old saying that, everyone sees the glory, but they don't know the story. And one of the things that I've really had to step into and was accept that vulnerability is one of the greatest things and strengths that you can possess, because when you can be vulnerable, when you can take all the masks off, when you can unzip yourself and let people see you for who you are, you become more relatable. And then people don't feel alone. And when people don't feel alone, they want to be a part of something. And then before you know it, you've impacted them in a way where they're now taking their masks off. They're unzipping themselves. So if we are to go all the way back, and, obviously I can go as long as I want with the story, but to give you the bullet points, I grew up in a very traditional Jewish household, which basically for the listeners that are on here that are Jewish, that means you have a very overbearing, overprotective mother, which, I'm completely grateful for her. She still thinks I'm 12 years old, which is fine. I would rather have her that way than no way. Mm-hmm. And, my dad was very, very hardworking. Nothing was ever handed to us. And because of the battles that were fought for me, I became very, very non-assertive. I kind of hung back. I didn't like conflict. I didn't like confrontation. So that led me to taking on the role of being bullied and picked on. And that was through childhood, middle school, high school, very impactful times in my life. And it became my norm. I didn't even realize that I was getting picked on really as bad as I was until I looked back and, reflected on all the stories. But it shaped me. And it shaped me in a way where, I just wanted everyone to like me. So, I did things at my own expense, being laughed at. And if it brought a smile to people's faces, then, my job was done. But obviously, we go through changes in life, and life is a roller coaster. There's bumps, there's potholes. And, now I know that all the things that happened for me shaped me to who I am right now. And, when I went away to college, the University of Pittsburgh, this was that time. It was in this 3-semester period from the time I was 18 to 18 and a half, almost 19, that my life completely changed.
And Scott, on that note, because that's going to be a good one when we come back, as we go into commercial, because that is where you started actually going, okay, wait, I'm going to have to do some lateral movements here. On the commercial break, when we come back, I want to ask you, when you talked about accepting vulnerability. And on that note, when we come back, I really want to hear, how does one get the courage to do that and to be vulnerable in a safe enough place for them? So when we come back, we're going to talk about vulnerability just for a second.
Absolutely.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Welcome back to the Cat Show. Up next, we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, and of course, companionship. Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
Fantastic cat. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
And we're back, and we're talking with Scott Aaron. And just as we really do go deeper into the quote unquote the story, when you were talking about you came to a point where you accepted vulnerability as a gift, and I'm thinking about that, and that's actually just a scary word, saying that word, vulnerability, but talking about being, whoever's out there and they're being bullied or they had been bullied or beaten down so much or picked on, how did you gain that courage to even put yourself, like you said, even at your own expense, to bring yourself up in some way? Where did you find that? How does one get there?
It's within, and you get to a point in your life where it's enough. We're so programmed nowadays to care so much what everyone thinks about us. Mm-hmm. We all have to be seen a certain way. I mean, I compare it to the filters that people use on social media. People don't even want to be themselves. They have to use a filter to make themselves look prettier or more handsome, or just being you is enough. So when I realized that being exactly who I was absolutely perfectly imperfect, and people are either going to like me or they're not, it allowed me to step out and say, you know what? I'm not afraid of my story. I'm not embarrassed of my story. I'm not ashamed or resentful or angry about my story. And if I open up, if I let my story out, and, there's a saying called letting go. And I believe that goes in two ways. People think for themselves to really get to a certain place in their life, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, relationship-wise, they have to, quote unquote, let go of the past. So I agree with that to a sense and to a specific point. Yes, it's absolutely important to let go of the past, but there's a specific aspect that people need to let go of. Yeah. And that's the emotional connection to your past. Any great speaker, any great author, they always do self-reflection and acknowledgement of where they have come from. So that those people have let go of the emotional attachment that used to come with their story from their past. What they haven't let go is the events. Ooh. Because the events are the things that actually shape you. So they can shape you in a negative or a positive way. But when you can really step into it and say, you know what, these don't shape me into a negative way anymore, a negative light. This is going to shape me into a positive light because I'm going to share my story. I'm going to inspire others who can relate to something similar or along the same lines of what I went through, so I can push them into stepping into their power so they can be more vulnerable, be more powerful, and leave an impact on this world. That's what it's all about.
Oh my goodness, you know what, that's so well said. I have to highlight that. Let go in the best of ways means, let go of the emotional connection to it, but keep the events because they shape you. I had to write that down. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that something you use when because you coach and train, and I do want to identify that for people listening, because you are both a personal trainer and help people physically change their bodies and stuff, and that's a lot of emotional stuff you can really connect there. And then you also help people get better in their business, like you coach business-wise as well. Do you use that is that a philosophy for you, would you say?
Oh, 100%. I do. I do a lot of life coaching and personal coaching now with people, because the fact of the matter is not everybody wants to work out. Not everybody wants to be healthy. But there's a connection to emotional health. So if someone can feel better emotionally, they're going to be more inspired. They're going to be more motivated to then want to take care of themselves in every aspect, whether that's emotionally, physically, nutritionally. So sometimes people will start with me at the core, at the foundation, at the basic blueprint of where they want to go in their life, and that's making themselves better first. And one of the things that I do 12 weeks of coaching, 45 to 60 minutes. It's all recorded, so people can look. I do it through Zoom, so people can watch me, and we can look at each other, and they get a copy after each one, so they get their entire training program with me. And they can reflect upon how far they've come, but I always make sure that I bring people back to their past and forgive, but not forget. to let go of, but not let go of completely, the emotions. But so when you can draw out someone's timeline and when you can have them go through this exercise, and, one of the stories that, I'm going to get more into this as we continue, but I did a leadership training for a local nonprofit in Philadelphia with upper management and middle management over 2 days, 18 hours. And I shared my story. And on the first day, some of the women in the front row started crying. And I said, guys, you don't have to feel bad for me. Mm-hmm. You don't have to feel bad about my story, because my story is not who you're looking at right now. I'm still standing. No matter what I went through, no matter what was trying to bring me down, I got back up, and I'm here now to tell you about this. So that's the important thing. It's about you're going to get knocked down, but it's important to get right back up, because everyone thinks that there's this straight line to success in life. Sorry. That is.
Do you see what you just said, actually? You just said about we think there's a straight line. And see, the whole thing, you didn't even know I was going to talk about lateral movement. See? And there we go. It's important to do the lateral side steps. I love that you just said that. And that's really good. I thank you for prefacing that right now, because as you share your story, I know that, people are going to they want to get that teary-eyed and have that sympathy and stuff. But really what you're asking is just to connect with the story, to hear what the events are, to see how you've moved through, to be an inspiration and a mentor.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's the thing, I so believe in coaching, and there's different aspects of coaching, and everyone thinks, and this is my personal belief, and people can agree or disagree with me, but what makes a great coach is someone who's been through an experience. So it doesn't matter if it's someone that's in recovery from alcohol, drugs, food, any sort of addiction, any sort of abuse. If you've come out on top, you're qualified to coach other people how you came out on top. Because what makes a great coach is someone who is acknowledged, reflected upon, and took note of those action steps of what they did and what they still continue to do on a daily basis to keep them driving forward. No certification will teach you that. The best certification you have is called your life.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Actually, I really, as a coach myself, I love that you just shared that for all coaches out there. And in our own way, we really all are, as long as we are taking that moment to reflect and stuff. And I'm excited for you to share that part of your story, so now that people are really set in a good place to receive your experience and the notes that you've taken based on what you happened. So yeah, please take us back to when you were 18, turning 19 there, and at college or university, and what happened.
Yeah, so I was at the University of Pittsburgh out in western Pennsylvania, and I was, having a normal college experience, really enjoying myself, and, I fell in love with the freedom. It was the first time I'd really been away from home for an extended amount of time. My father, who was the biggest motivator of my life, my inspiration, he was always into physical fitness. I used to go to the gym with him as a little kid and watch him work out with his buddies, and I didn't want to work out. I just wanted to be around him. It just really inspired me, and it was a really great, motivating atmosphere. And my father was an entrepreneur, had multiple successful businesses, and walked away from his last business and partnered with a rehabilitation company, just like NovaCare, for anyone that's familiar with any sort of physical rehab company in Philadelphia. And things seemed to be going really well. And my summer, in between freshman and sophomore year, I was 18 going on 19. My sister was 15 going on 16. And I remember sitting in the backyard. It was during the summer. My family, we would do family dinner, and just sitting out back. And my father said that, we need to talk to you guys. And we said, okay. That was nothing uncommon, but what was uncommon was what he was about to tell us. And he prefaced it by saying, everything will be okay. We're hoping for the best. And he had said that he had made some bad business decisions, and there was a possibility that he would be on house arrest for a little while. And he's cooperating with the federal government, so he's doing everything he can to cooperate and have things done appropriately. So it was kind of brushed over very, very softly. So we didn't really think too much of it. And we were going through the appropriate steps as a family. I was writing letters to the judge, and we were doing everything we had to do. And then it came to the sentencing day. So, what everyone has to realize is that in my head, I had painted this picture. I knew what house arrest was. He would just be home for a little while and, go to work and come back. And I'm like, okay, it could be a lot worse. Mm-hmm. So the total lawsuit, the judge was going over everything, and there were some things that I didn't know, and there were some things I did know. And what I didn't know was that the total indictment and the lawsuit for insurance fraud totaled $9.5 million.
Ouch.
So I started to think, okay, this is a little bit more serious than I thought. And I remember, the judge asking my father, did he have any last remarks or comments? And my dad started crying. And I haven't seen my father. I couldn't remember the last time I saw my father cry. So then I started to really notice that something was really wrong. And then I peered over to my right on the opposing side, the people against my father. And I had some family sitting there. Oh. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So the judge went through everything that he went through. And in the end, my father was sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison. And, obviously there's a lot of worse things that could have happened. But what people need to understand is that when the glue is completely removed from your family, the foundation will fall apart. And my father was the glue to our family. Mm-hmm. And about 6 months prior to the sentencing, I think my father inherently knew something was going down because with the help of my two grandfathers, one is still with us, one has passed, but obviously still with us, helped my father purchase our first health club in Old City, Philadelphia, called Old City Ironworks. So my dad had started working at the gym, and he didn't really say why he had bought the gym. It just was a dream of his, but it was obviously in preparation for what he knew could happen. So when everything went down.
Now, we're going to pause you on the went down. I'm going to pause because we've got to keep the suspense for the commercial here. No. Okay. And as we go with that, this will be the next phase of this. But I really like that thing was what I didn't know. So when we come back, we're going to find out what you didn't know and how it all rose to the top after that, after these commercials.
Awesome.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked her for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
We're back. You're listening to Light on Living. We've got Scott Aaron here. And I just want to review because when you share with everybody and myself that we can all imagine that when we're 18, 19 years old, you know, like you just said, you're enjoying the freedom, going off to university abroad, and then suddenly a lot, like for your father to even have anything like life-changing with your family for 2.5 years, that time, that is such precious time for that learning and that bonding and really getting yourself off the ground to live your life. So I'm gonna bring you back there because you did a lot with those 2 years.
Yeah, you know, it was. I tell people it was the most impactful time of my life because, in a sense, I lost my innocence. I did not, you know, from 18 and a half to 21, 22 years old, I didn't live the normal life that someone would during that time period. You know, I came back from the University of Pittsburgh. I re-enrolled at Temple University in downtown Philadelphia, and my father handed over the keys to the business. And he said, "You have to take care of your mother and your sister."
Wow.
I remember dropping him off. You know, we drove to the prison, and you know, and he turned around to me and he said, "You're the man of the house now." Mm-hmm. And I had a choice. I could fold my hand and kind of, you know, throw my hands up and say, I can't do this. I'm 18 and a half. What do I know?
Right.
Or I take it head on, and I also, I think being at the age that I was at, 18, I didn't know any better. So I said, yeah, I'll take this on. You know, yeah. I'm going to go at it. I'm going to go at it with a full head of steam. So what I didn't know was the emotional suppressing that I did. The anger, right. The resentment, the hate of being in that situation, because I didn't have any time to deal with my emotions. Mm-hmm. You know, my father gets dropped off, he's gone. We visited every Sunday, myself and my sister. My mom went on Saturdays. I didn't have time to cope. I didn't have time to deal with this. So right. It was suppressed all the way down, and obviously we all know that when you suppress feelings, they come out in other ways, and they show up in different ways. But I came back, I started running the gym, and there was about 325 members at the gym. And for those that do follow me on social media, if you don't, you can just type in Scott Aaron. You can find me on any social media. I sometimes do Throwback Thursday pictures on Facebook, and I had a really big afro back in the day, and I was a little bit of a free child. I was a hippie, and I used to go around and listen to music, you know, with bands, and you know, and here I am at this gym, and you know, the hair comes off, the beard comes off, you know, the hemp bracelets go away, and
darn it!
I start looking at all these fit, you know, men and women. I'm like, you know, this is kind of cool. So I started working out, and I caught the bug. And this is in, you know, 1998, 1999. So the industry was completely different, you know, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I kind of started to understand what my dad was really about as far as the physicality and the feel and the look. And I fell in love with it. And by the time my father came back home, I had been going to school full time and running the gym full time. I had graduated from Temple, and the gym was actually, I mean, very fruitful. We went from 350 members to nearly 1,200 in that 2.5 year span. And
what did you do so different? Like that's quadrupling. Like that's huge. And you're going to, and you went to university too. So,
I did. You know,
what?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would go to school. I would wake up at 6 o'clock every morning. I would go to school from 8 to 12. I would go right to the gym, and I was there from 12:30 to 9. And you know, I would train people, and I just, you know, it was just my natural personality. I was always sociable, and just genuinely being who I was. it became the cheers of gyms. You know, you weren't just a swipe number. You were actually a person. You know, my mom would come down to the gym and she would trade recipes with some of the other girls.
Aww.
She became like the gym mom, and, you know, my sister would come down every once in a while in between college, and it was just a really fun family atmosphere. It was right in the middle of the city, so everyone walked there. We would have gym parties, and, you know, my dad came back, and, you know, he couldn't initially work there, but, you know, after his time was up, he was allowed to start working back at the gym, and we had the idea for opening up a second location in the area, starting to impact a little area that we were in. So we did, in an area just north of where we were called Northern Liberties, and we opened up our second location called Ironworks 2. So now we're running 2 clubs, and things are really flying. I'm busier than ever with my personal training. You know, I'm doing 60, 70 sessions a week, making really good money at such an early age, 22, 23, 24 years old. I end up meeting, you know, at the time, the person that I ended up marrying, and this is another part of the story. I have been through 2 divorces in my life, and this goes back to something I shared earlier about, you know, when you suppress certain things, it comes out in different ways, and that definitely showed up in my relationships. In the first one, I wasn't able to express feelings and understand where she was coming from, so it drew us apart instead of bringing us together. And, you know, it wasn't a bad relationship. You know, we had much love for each other, and you know, she's happy, I'm happy. But the big turning point, the second turning point in this whole story, was in 2002. My father was approached by another family that was interested in actually buying both of the gyms.
Oh, wow.
And the intention was never to sell the gyms. The intention was to continue to open more. And they offered us $1 million. And at this time, we were like, oh, my God. Mm-hmm. You know, we've just been offered $1 million for both of our health clubs. And, you know, what could that do?
Right.
So, you know, we had a family meeting, and obviously I was president, CEO, quote unquote, on paper, but my dad was obviously the face, because legally he couldn't own anything and would never be able to. Right. So everything was kind of put on me. So we ended up accepting the deal. And overnight, at 24 years old, I became a millionaire. And I really had no time to really feel it. We went out to a big celebratory lunch, I remember, at the Capitol Grill, and we ordered like really good stuff. and then we opened up a little personal training business, and things kind of parted way with the new owners. And my dad got the bug again to, let's open up a new club. Let's look for another place outside of the city where we can start leaving a new mark, because he was romancing the idea of what we could create in the city, we can create outside the city, but we didn't know how that would work. So we were looking for different locations. My father found an area called East Falls, where I still reside right now, right outside of the city. And he found a space, and it was both of our gyms combined. It was 12,000 square feet, beautiful space. And he's like, let's get back into it. And, you know, obviously my dad has a great business mind, but is not the best businessman.
See, and I want to ask about that, actually, because here you are now. You'd started this at like the 18, 19 mark, and there's, I mean, certainly with men and their testosterone, they still have a lot of drive at 14, but now you've been through quite a bit. And now in what I'm hearing, I'm like, okay, that first success of the first 2 gyms, you were put, like, that's a heavy hours. Like, I mean, I've been a trainer, and I have lots of trainer friends, like, to do 60 sessions a week. Oh my gosh, I feel tired thinking about it. But at this point now, with this new vision, this new dream, this new prospect, do you now still have that energy and that, because it sounds like it was more that your energy and your social skills and stuff, did you gain the business skills that you felt you could use moving forward, or was it also based on like a lot of energy?
You know, I was only, you know, this was in 2004 that we opened this gym. So I was 25, and I had, I really hadn't, I was still putting it was still the energy, it was the vision, it's all my, I'm my own boss, and I own a gym. So that was my motivation. I bought in. I'm like, yeah, we can duplicate this out here. We can open up some more gyms out here.
Right.
And, I didn't have any other belief than trusting what was going to happen. I didn't ever have I don't think so. I am a very faithful person, and I'm very faithful to my family. So if this was going to be best for the family and our future, I was all in. And, long story short, it was not what we thought it was going to be. And the $1 million that I had at 24, 2.5 years after opening the new gym, turned into $1.6 million in debt.
Oh, geez.
And there was a lot of bad financial decisions, and none made on my part, but it was all in my name. And it was another challenging time in my life. At this point, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for my first marriage. She moved on, and I don't blame her because she had no financial security with me, so I don't fault her for that at all. It was on me. And, I had to go through another growth spurt, so to speak, business-wise, and, suppressed even more, like the things that I still couldn't acknowledge what was going on. And I never wanted to believe that my father was the catalyst to some of these decisions, that these were the things that we needed to do to keep this going. And I ended up a few years later getting back into another serious relationship, which turned into my second marriage and my first and only child, a beautiful 5-year-old little boy named Taylor. And the suppression of all of my feelings and emotions were put to a complete test with this second relationship, because I ended up with someone who was the complete opposite of me emotionally, spiritually, and it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work. And I left. I was at the biggest crossroad in my life. And I hired a business coach named Jeffrey Combs about 4 years ago. And we had our first session, and I was telling him a little bit about where I was with my life and my business and what I wanted in relationship. And within 15 minutes of her.
And with that, because we're gonna have to go into commercial. This is where the story really does turn for you on that business level, and that's why. Because I really want to highlight when we come back to really review and say you went from so many lessons that you had to still learn, and here you are just learning them. So this is how your success came about too. So when we come back from commercial break.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
So as we continue here with Scott Aaron, what I really want to highlight for all the listeners here is that you had literally gone through the most life-changing things many times, not just one, not just twice, and not just later in life, but early in life and going on, and you still hadn't quite, developed your, let's call it, like your systems or your, like you had skills and you had passion, but you didn't quite have a strategy yet. And so here you are, through relationships and businesses and children and all that. And finally, and I love that you said this earlier, that you believe in coaching because you yourself hired a business coach because you went, I need some help here. So that is because I've seen your Facebook Lives, a few of them, and I've seen those videos. The way you teach and the way you coach teach when you're on those videos, it's like you're really wanting us, the viewers, to understand emotionally why the brain needs to do certain things. Like it's like you connect them for us. So I want to highlight and say thank you for that, by the way. And
You're welcome.
Because you really have turned your success from just emotional and passion success to business success.
So I always do deep reflection on my journey. And Eckhart Tolle is one of my favorite authors. He wrote a wonderful book called The Power of Now. And I was listening to a podcast of his, and he was talking about addiction. And I ask my clients all the time, can you name the 3 main addictions that everyone talks about? And they get it right away: drugs, alcohol, food. And Eckhart Tolle was talking about this, and he goes, these are the 3 most publicized addictions out there. But the one addiction that is never spoken about that leads to all of those addictions is the addiction of emotion. Mm-hmm. When people get addicted to their emotions, they have outlets. Sometimes those are drugs. Sometimes those are alcohol. Sometimes those are food or lack of food. Mm-hmm. So if people were actually able to address the root cause of their emotions, it would stop the addictions. It would start having them live into their power. So when people can turn the mirror around, look themselves in the face, acknowledge what they've gone through, doesn't have to be the reality. They can start a new chapter every single day, and that's something that I did, and this is what my coach told me to do. He said, listen, you got to do 2 things. You've become your father's father. You're the catalyst. You are the liaison for him to do everything that he's doing. You got to get rid of him or close the gym. And you're in a verbally abusive marriage, and you're getting beat down every single day, and you're taking it, and you need to leave. And I was like, whoa, like that's in my first call. That is heavy stuff. That is like complete 180 stuff. And what people have to know, and I go over lists of things that I've been through. 2 bankruptcies, 2 divorces, failed businesses, being picked on, bullied, everything. And when people hear all that, going from millionaire to nothing, and they're like, how did you do it? And it's not about how did I. It's I chose to. I chose to do something different. I chose to start living my life differently. And what I can tell you is this. When my coach told me this, I'm like, you know what? I'm strong and I can do this. And it took me a little while to wrap my arms around this entire thing. But it got to the point where I was uncovering more financial things going on within the gym. And I pulled my dad into our office and I said, listen, it's been 9 years of having this gym, and this is my time. And I'm going to let you go. And I'm taking over the gym myself, and you're going to need to find somewhere else to train your clients. And he didn't put up a fight. He didn't question my decision. Mm-hmm. He said, okay. And we didn't speak for about 1.5 years on my accord. I was not ready. Mm-hmm. And it took me about another year. And I was at a Breakthroughs event that my business coach hosts 4 times a year called Breakthroughs to Success out in Stockton, California. And I realized that I had never allowed myself to heal and feel the resentment and anger that I was suppressing against my father from everything that had been done for me, not to me. And my coach said, you got to forgive him, because if you do not forgive him for who he is and what he did, you're never going to be able to move forward in your life. Mm-hmm. So I called him from the event, and it had been about a year and a half since we spoke, and I said, Dad, I just want to tell you that I forgive you for everything that's happened. I love you. I am not ready to see you or talk to you in person yet, but when I am, I will let you know. And I hung up the phone. The second thing I did is, prior to leaving for this event, I remember waking up two mornings before, and I got up extra early. I went downstairs. My son was still sleeping upstairs, and my ex was as well. And I looked out the back window, and I started crying, because I realized that not only had I settled, but I was living the life that I didn't deserve. I was choosing to stay stuck. I was choosing to get beat down. I was choosing to not have my son see the best man that I can be, the best father I can be. And 5 days later, I was in the airport in Sacramento waiting to fly back, and I called her. And I said, I've had a really, really revealing weekend, and it's going to be best for our son if we no longer stay together. When I get home, I'm going to pack my bags, and I'm going to stay at my mom's. And I left. Now, we're still in each other's lives, because obviously we have a son to raise together, and there's been ups and downs through that. But what I can tell you is this. When my life was completely flipped upside down, it was flipped upside down in the way that it was supposed to be. And for the first time in my life, I was looking through the clearest lenses that I have ever seen in my entire life. There was nothing holding me back. There was nothing standing in my way except me. And I have never let myself get in between me and what I wanted to achieve. And now I use my story as an anchor to inspire everyone out there that is settling for a life that they know could be better, settling for a relationship that they know can be better, and settling for who they are, knowing they can become a better person that they really, really know they are. And this led me to earlier this year writing and releasing and self-publishing my first book called Good Guys Always Win.
I love that.
I took all of these stories, and I took all these stories, I took all of these things, and I pumped them into a very, very short 70-page book, because I wanted this to be a book where people can read it in a waiting room, on a flight, wherever they are. They pick it up, they don't want to put it down, it's done, and they get inspired on every single page. And I talk about all the things that I needed to do to get through those things that could have ended everything. And I'm still standing today. So my message,
I am so glad that you are.
Me too. Because
the message, I do want to hear your version of the message, because what I do want to highlight, to let everybody know, is that through you needed to set boundaries to allow yourself to grab all that stuff you suppressed to heal, and then be able to have that moment where you could choose clearly through your new lenses. And that book sounds, I love that you just said you could, so it's short enough you could read it in the airport, because you had actually taken action on calling your ex-wife to make that call in an airport. So I love that. And I do want to hear that message. And then we need to tell everybody where they can find you too. So yes, I want to let you finish with your message.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I got a text message about 2 months after the release of my book from one of my best friends that, we kind of grew apart. He moved to the West Coast, and he's back east now. And he sent me a text message, and he goes, I just finished your book. And he goes, for what it's worth, I am so sorry for everything that I did to you.
Oh.
And I still get a little choked up when I even talk about that, because he recognized that some of the stories that I expressed in this in this book, he was involved with.
Mm-hmm.
He was the leader of.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't hold any resentment towards any of my friends. I love them so much because it helped shape who I am right now. Mm-hmm. And the overall message that I want to leave people with this book is that your failures always open the doors to your successes. Mm-hmm. And it's a simple phrase, but when people really think about it, they write it down and they look at it, is that you need to fail in order to succeed. I needed to go through 2 divorces to realize the type of love that I deserved. Mm-hmm. I needed to go through 2 bankruptcies to learn how to properly run a business. I needed to get bullied and picked on to learn how to be the strong, confident, assertive man that I am today. I had to leave my second marriage to learn how to be the best father I can be. And again, this goes back to something I stated early on. Nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us. So the message for people yes.
I love that because we're going to end up wrapping up, and I don't want people to not know how to get a hold of you. And I love that you ended with that exactly. Things happen for us. And if anybody would like to learn more or just even see Scott and just hear more of that message or even read the book, it's Scott Aaron. And I love that name because there's double T's and double A. So it's SCOTT, right. And then it's AARON. Please find him on Facebook. Find him on LinkedIn. We didn't even get to talk about LinkedIn, but it doesn't even matter because you know what? Everything that you stand for is how you operate from. So I want to give a huge thank you for being on my show, Light on Living here. And I really encourage everybody to reach out to just ask you anything.
And again, before we go, thank you again, Lisa. Thank you for everyone that listens to this. We're here to serve. We're here to live the best life possible. And I appreciate you and the opportunity.
No, well, thank you so much, Scott. And we will be sure to have you back. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everyone.